Okay, I think we are live. Anyway, hello everybody, and welcome to Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the live video podcast for people who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them. Film, you know what? We're a show where we like to go beyond the review and get into the story and the meaning and more the details of the craft of the films we watch today. And speaking of which, today we are going to be talking about Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I would say the perfect answer or the perfect explanation, if everyone says, is it the idea or the execution? It is the execution. All right, but before let me get into the general introductions of it all. Whoopsie, kind of blowing that. Sorry, everyone. All right, first of all, let's just set up the film. Okay, here's the log line. An aging Chinese immigrant is swept up in an insane adventure where she alone can save the world by exploring other universes, connecting with the lives she could have led. Which I gotta admit, we'll see what you guys think in the chat and my co-host, but that's one of the best log lines I have read off. I wish I wrote this log line, and that was from IMDb. Anyway, it's written and directed by Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, or the Daniels. Oh, good grief. Anyway, it stars Michelle Yeoh, Stephanie Su, Kei Hui Quan, Jenny Slate, Harry Shum Jr., James Hong, and of course, Jamie Lee Curtis. And with that out of the way, yeah, I think it's time to bring on my co-host. Oh, wait, yes, the social nutrition checklist. My bad. Yeah, let's, it was pretty straightforward. Would it get a reframe stamp? No, it would not. Is it union made? Yes, it is. Does it pass the Bechdel test? I believe it does. I did keep class consciousness blank. I think this is more, I want to leave that open for a discussion. I kind of struggle with this one. So I was kind of leave that open for discussion, but at least it's got a 75 or a 50%. Jeez. Oh, I'm really having a bad night tonight. Oh, well, it is what it is. Let's get back to, where we belong, and let's introduce my wonderful co-host, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. How you doing, my friend?
Great. Great summer weekend here in Winnipeg, and yeah, watched a pretty pretty hypnotizing movie. And yeah, it was it's been a good 72 hours.
It really is everywhere, everything, everywhere.
It is, yeah. My description of the folk festival, basically. What? 2 different songs at once?
Which, for those of you who don't know, or not Winnipeggers, yes, the Winnipeg International Folk Festival is going on. They're wrapping up. Tonight's their closing night, eh, Jim? Out at Birdsall Park.
Yeah, probably would have. They shut down pretty early on Sundays these days, so 9:30 or it's about 40 minutes ago. But
oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
last night. Yeah. That's why I like going on the Saturday, because you're there from. I was there for out in the heat for a long time, but I was outdoors for 13 hours, so you get the full scope of the day from high noon all the way to midnight, and it's actually pretty great. I was in quite a good mood today, so.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's everything New Year's Eve should be, in my opinion. You feel clean, you meet a bunch of people, have some drinks, listen to some great music, and you're fresh. It's a whole cleansing thing. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm glad you had a great time. Listen, I wanted to, actually, I got a couple of things, Jim. And I wouldn't call it fan mailbag, although I did get a lovely note from one of the friends of the channel, Mr. Walt from Walt's Flicks Picks. Of course, last week, I might have gotten a little passionate when Walt questioned a part of Riders of Justice. And I'm like, I wanted to make sure that everyone, and I feel a little bad. I was perhaps a little too assertive in my pushback, a little too pissy about it. And so I wanted to, you know what, I need to call myself out on this, even though Walt was totally nonplussed. He's a YouTuber. He's got a much thicker skin, but I wanted to make sure that you know what, if I'm not calling myself out on bad behavior, you know what, folks, feel free to. I just want to make sure that everyone knows in the chat, no matter how much I may disagree with you, I'm not saying anything crazy ass racist or anything. You know what, I want Jim and I want this to be a safe space. So, you know what, I'm not just apologizing to Walt, but to everyone who, comes across this later. We should be passionate about our opinions. Film should be something we are passionate about. That said, that doesn't mean it's an excuse to be pissy with someone who's contributing by engaging in the chat. So anyway, another thing, though, and this might come here. Let me see if I can't just pull this up. Jim and I, and I will put honest to goodness, folks, I'll put a link somewhere to our short version, our parking lot reaction. Jim and I saw Thor: Love and Thunder. And you can see that, more like a review. But it did make me think, Jim, how do I put this? You and I have been talking about a number of things, and one of the things I've been going on about of late is about the car, the film as a car. And that sometimes we can, and I think a lot of folks in the YouTube review space can get wrapped up on this idea that the car is that we look at the car and we go, you know what? It has great upholstery. What a bumper. Look at the curve of the hood. And even maybe you pop open the hood and you talk about the engine and everything. I came to a bit of an epiphany, Jim, because even that has kind of bugged me. I don't think that's the way you and I would call this channel a place for students of film, both who are, want to be moved by film, changed by film, to have a pure film experience, something that touches us here and here, but also to understand film better, in part, so we can get more out of it. Would you agree with that? Is that a good capture?
Yeah, no, definitely. A good log line.
Thank you. I'll have to hope I am. Am I recording this?
Exactly. Someone get that down.
I think, though, also, and this is open to the folks in the chat. I can see we've got a few folks, including Mr. Curtis Judd from Curtis Judd and Curtis Judd Audio, another YouTuber, far more controlled when he's dealing with his chat than I am, apparently. And DMG. Great to see you guys here. Anyway, back to my epiphany, maybe too much, but I am even wondering who cares about the car. The car isn't the point. You can do it with a bicycle, for Christ's sakes. It's the journey and the destination. And I would argue the things that I find most interesting, and I think you and I even do, is it's the story and the destination, the meaning, the philosophy. What is the point of this movie? And that if we get too wrapped up in let's say the nuts and bolts, the craft, the car, we misunderstand, I think, one of the great things about film, and how the car doesn't matter. Because if you look at, I don't know, Jim, Coda, now there's a great car. Riders of Justice, Thor, I'm not going to say Thor: Love and Thunder, but Thor Ragnarok, that was a pretty shiny car. But when I think of a film like Clerks, that's a bicycle. It may have only been a unicycle. and it is as effective as any of those other films in moving me and changing me. I think Clerks is truly just a sweetheart little film, and shot on black and white. You could not praise anything. It's not like if we watched that, we wouldn't be, well, and the cinematography was, well,
Yeah.
adequate. The acting, you know, wasn't bad. Was it in, you know, a lot of it was like, you know, they're doing their best. They're enthusiastic, right? Like, and I think that's ignore the car. Don't get wrapped up in the car, especially when you're trying to explain why a movie gets you in here and makes you think here. You know, so yeah, I think you'll see in any of my commentary, I'm gonna just dig deeper into this, and that's what occurred to me, and I would love to know what you think now that I've dumped my let's say philosophy on you. And I'm sure I'm not the first person who's made this. Maybe the first person who's talked about the car and the bicycle and the skateboard, or, you know, e-scooter.
Yeah. When you mean you, do you mean me or the audience, or both?
Well, both, but you to start with.
Well, I think in a way when there's something that grabs you, some impressive part of the movie, you know, John Williams' score in Jaws or something. I mean, sometimes it's worthy of being called out. I do agree that it can get into a bit of the everything's great, you know, in a movie that you like. You sort of end up itemizing all the ways in which it was great instead of sort of trying to figure out how it works a little bit. And you know, I think there's a few times that you know, I like to call out certain things. This one that we
absolutely
this one that we took a look at for today's show, I was thinking, well, what, you know, am I going to say anything about the cast? As far as I'm concerned, they're all really good in different ways. So, you know, do you isolate one? Do you say one's better than the other? Or do you spend any time on that when you can be talking about other things? So I get your point. You know, there's always something to appreciate. And I think
there's nothing wrong with saying, you know, in this story, in this journey, because films, the story is the journey. Boy, it was a nice, the upholstery was great. It was very comfortable. You could think of the cast as your travel buddies, maybe, and it's like, boy, Michelle Yeoh, what a great, you know, what a great co-pilot, or you know, what a great hang. I don't know, like I'm not saying that to ignore it completely. I am saying though that because people don't talk about story and meaning, they're limiting themselves. They're stuck on the car. You know, it's like, no, this thing didn't work because of the car. They could have done it with a bicycle. It would have been different, but in many respects the same.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. One of my, as much as I liked Roger Ebert, and I once had an email exchange with him, it was very pleasant, which I subsequently lost when the computer crashed. Yay! But
of course.
But yeah. He spent a lot of his, especially his written reviews, not his ones with Siskel as much, but like I'd say 80% of it was him discussing the plot and then like detailing the plot and then talking about whether or not he liked it. Maybe 80 is a bit high, but that was one of my frustrations with him. And I could appreciate that he loves films, and I know he's written books about film, and that's probably where you should go to look for him. But yeah, it's same kind of thing, is that, you know, where are we going to find the key to unlocking how something works or doesn't? I also had another friend who said that, you know, back in high school, and he said, you know, it's good to know why you like something, and that's sort of been one of the things that I've often thought about. Well,
so especially otherwise, you get stuck using, let's say, heuristics, rules of thumb. X is in it, and I like X's movies. or I like X in films, which can steer you wrong. Or you limit yourself all of a sudden. Yeah, I agree with you completely. Why? And that's, I think, for us and for these conversations, because we're spending an hour plus on one movie. What are we getting out of it? What is our chat, any of the folks that watch us getting out of it, And I hope that we're all kind of developing our understanding of how a film works and why it moves us.
Yeah.
And yeah, like beyond so many reviews just get wrapped up in an amazing performance, in superlative adjective attached to performer, or the direction, or and it's like, oh, you really know that much about engines? I didn't know you're an engineer, when we can all editorialize on the journey and the point of it, and did it achieve that? All right. Jim, we've got plenty of folks. The chat is active.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that oh my goodness, DMG, Putin's cat. Wondering if that's Randy Quaid. Oh, this must be something that's going back and
That's
forth.
for me. No, that's for me. I've been told that I look like him for a while now.
Sure.
Not Randy Quaid.
All right, DMG getting pegged at the Winnefest. Oh, zing!
Ooh, that sounds painful.
Jelly is welcome Putin's cat, and Jelly Duck 100 is in the house. Good to see you here.
Yes, hello.
A great tang. All right, well, you'll have to comment on that, Jim. That's obviously an in-joke. Let's now that we've done that, we're going to do things a little different, folks. Before we get into the spoiler zone, this is when we're going to give our first kind of impressions and a brief discussion of craft. It's not as though we want to reject any discussion of craft. It's important, but I think to make sure that we give it appropriate weight and not too much weight, we're going to start doing it this way. So, Jim, with that in mind, why don't you tell us, give us your overarching impression of the movie and what you thought of the nuts and bolts of it. Talk about that upholstery.
Yeah, so the first little bit is the first impression. I just wrote out a quick sentence. I put, an exposition-heavy first half leads to a place where the absurdities start to make sense and the emotional punches start to land. Having said that, and having talked about the cast, I have to say the cast is great. For Michelle Yeoh, and it's been commented that she maybe hasn't gotten the career that she's deserved. Great role for her, 59-year-old woman. And also, sorry, I'm forgetting, is it the one that played Waymond? I don't want to mispronounce his name.
Oh, Miss Quan.
Kwan.
Yeah.
Kwan, yes. Someone who famously was a child actor and then dropped out of it for a little while. This must be a dream for him to be able to play that. So that I thought they were both excellent. They played off each other well. My wife, who I watched it with, I don't always watch the movies with my wife, but thought that the daughter was also very good. Jamie Lee Curtis was having the time of her life, and James Hong, who played the father,
Gong Gong,
Carla and I, yes, Gong Gong, Alpha Gong Gong, we saw him in Thailand taking pictures of a temple back in 1994, and we saw an Italian couple who also recognized him, and they were gesticulating. Who is that guy? I know that guy. What is he doing? Who's that guy?
Did you help him out?
No, they were about 100 yards that way, but it was like two couples recognizing this character actor and in trouble in Little China, that kind of thing. So,
that's
anyway.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
A couple before we cut out. So a couple other little things. Man, props to the lighting, the costuming, and the makeup people. They just did an amazing job. And I, this one, it's exhausting in a lot of ways. setting up some of those montage shots. Yeah, it's kudos to them. I can't imagine the work that went into
And the
this.
matching,
Yes, yeah,
set matching and the set change and the set turnover, continuity must have been hell. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree with you completely, Jim. Great example of filmmaking craft.
mhm,
And
yeah,
with a limited budget,
mhm,
because the studios, it's A24, and they're not known for. I believe they bought this film. It's they might have
okay,
been one of the players initially, but I
yeah,
think they bought it at maybe not Sundance, South by Southwest, one of those.
mhm,
I'm not 100% sure, but they're not throwing around a ton of bucks.
yeah, yeah,
And especially for a predominantly Asian cast, and
yeah,
so what they were able to achieve is fantastic. I did want to say, what I think Michelle Yeoh, maybe she hasn't had, and that's we're the ones who miss out there. She hasn't had the, let's
yeah,
say, the Hollywood career she should have or could have, or in a perfect world would have had, but she never stopped working.
oh
She
yeah,
is
yeah,
huge in Asian cinema, rightly so. And
mhm,
so it's like, oh well, I'll do a North American gig, collect a big fat paycheck,
yeah,
and
yeah,
but so I think Michelle Yeoh is, yeah, this is just another accolade in a long line. I think the first time I saw her was in, of all things, that, was it My Concubine, or
oh, okay.
what
Is it
was it?
James Bond? I know she was a Bond girl.
Yeah,
As gross as that term seems these days, but
exactly. Um,
yeah.
Farewell, My Concubine, maybe.
Oh, is that
You know what?
Gong? No. Yeah, yeah. I used to
I
watch a
now
lot
I got to
more
look
Chinese
that
films.
up.
Yeah, yeah. While you're doing that, I should mention, yeah, that of course is a good point, Rob. The corollary to that is I've always hated the term one hit wonder because generally it means one North American hit wonder. When Chumbawamba has a bunch of albums, a bunch of hits overseas, not necessarily in the States, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, and Stephanie Sue played the daughter. I neglected to mention her name, and she deserves full credit there.
Oh my goodness, I may really have been blown that. I assumed she was in that film, but
Hmm.
she may not have been.
Was it
Huh?
Gong Li?
Well, Li Gong was in it,
Li
but
Gong,
and
sorry.
so Zhang Ziyi. But I
Hmm.
thought Michelle Yeoh was also in it. Just a sec here. Now I've got to look up the name of the film because, oh my goodness.
Dragon Movie Guy says, loved Short Round in this flick. Yes, yeah, he was.
Memoirs of a Geisha.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
For crying out loud. Oh, Michelle Yeoh was in that. Okay. Concubine. Farewell, My Concubine, which is a film, not the film we're talking about. All right.
Yes.
Okay. With that out of the way, anything else you wanted to add, Jim?
Let me just check my notes. I think that was pretty much it. I know
Before we get into the spoiler zone?
DMG mentioned the editing, and yeah, I have to just in the chat while you were looking that up, and yeah, I have to agree with that. We shouldn't overlook that at all. I used to have
And
this great
then something about Thor: Love and Thunder. Not positive.
I used to have this great DVD that didn't have a rewind wheel button. It had a wheel, so it had this liquid back and forth. It was just beautiful. We still have it. Don't use it. I don't know why, but it would be one of those ones that would be perfect to look at those sort of rapid fire Michelle Yeoh faces. How she changed those sort of rapid shots of her
Yeah.
going through various dimensions. I would maybe I should anyway.
Well, again, and that's, I think, where what DMG's talking about. But it all, yeah, great, really understanding their cut. I would love to see the storyboards.
Yes.
All right.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay. So, folks, we are now going to enter the spoiler zone. Now I'm trying to channel Cody Brockup's voice. All right. Yeah, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to. Okay, I wonder why that's not coming up. Help me out here. There we are.
I'll
There
distract
we
them with
are.
juggling.
Beg everyone for a like and a subscribe and all that stuff. Okay. Yes, Jim, we are now into story. And this is, I swear to God, this is the concept, Jim. Never on a long line. In the end, the first 10 minutes sort of set everything up. Here is a woman looking back at her life and what could have been. This is what this movie is. Just someone later in life going through a tough time, struggles with your only child, your husband is, you're not connected, your dad isn't happy with you, all this stuff's going on in that first key 10 minutes, and it could have been any, like, execution. The story where they take that idea is so effing impressive. While at the same time, weirdly, like I did feel, Jim, like I'd seen this movie before, in this idea that I am way more important than I think than I feel.
Yeah.
That I'm going to be whisked away on this adventure. Calgon, take me away. but yeah, I don't have, I think, enough superlatives. Speaking of, I mean, yeah, this story worked for me.
Yeah. It takes the it really ramps up the mundanity. I don't know if you can ramp up mundanity, but just that, and once again, kudos to the production design, because that felt like a dusty old, like I've been in Asian houses in Asia that are sort of, teetering shelves full of stuff, and and the business down below, even though it seems dirty, even though the business of laundry is cleaning stuff, it seems kind of dusty, and but it just takes this mundane situation, and you obviously know what you're watching. Can you imagine if you didn't know what you were watching? You'd think, oh, this is a family drama about laundromat, and bam, then 15 minutes in, it sort of changes a little bit, but a little bit. Yeah, they really took this in a lot of different directions, and even I didn't even get used to it towards the end. Like some of the absurdities that they came up with, I thought they seemed different. Like the ideas were fresher and weirder, and it's almost like they didn't have an internal editor, which in a good way. Like they had this 2001 reference. They had the rocks with the googly eyes. Like, yeah, I was there for it. But just the way that they took off with it, yeah, it was kept you in it. Like it's not a short movie either, but you were,
yeah,
the energy was there.
Yeah, was there any, let me ask you this. Was there anything that like actually took you out of the movie? Any turn, any twist? I think that was one of the things they did such a good job at, is establishing how weird it was. It was almost impossible, but I don't know. What was your experience?
I was wondering about the first half, whether or not this was connecting with me on an emotional level. Like I could appreciate it on a mental level, on a appreciator of story level. But I was sort of concerned that it would be all up here. And then once that second half kicked in, and what was the key to it was strangely the hot dog universe, where I finally realized that one of the ways in which Michelle Yeoh was instructed to go off into another multiverse is to say something or do something that would trigger that option for her. And one of them was to tell Jamie Lee Curtis that she loved her. So she kept on saying, "Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you." Of course, not meaning it.
Yeah.
But then we got to hot dog universe in which they're in a relationship, and then you know then emotionally it sort of kicked in for me, and I thought, oh, that wasn't just a BS tribulation, or that wasn't just a stunt or an
A
obstacle. That was
thing
a
to,
genuine,
yeah,
there was a genuine reason for that. And
yeah.
and I was sort of, I found the second half quite different than the first half. But
Well,
yeah.
and that's a great
How
point
about
that
you?
because it also, if you think of the first half where Michelle Yeoh, like her character Evelyn, woman
Mm.
has a name, Evelyn.
Yes,
Uh,
sorry.
well, I'm doing it myself. Uh, she is not connected. She's not connected to herself.
That's a
She's
good
not
point. Yeah.
connected to her husband. She is, and in a movie that is all about how you are connected, you're connected to your choices and you're
Mhm.
connected to the consequences of your choices, both the path that you think you've taken, but the other path and all these other versions of yourself and who they are connected to. So I think that's a great point. That's where it sort of it that is the point where it sinks in, and all of a sudden, I have real emotional stakes. I am
Mhm.
starting to, yeah, you don't want her to suffer, but at the same time, you're like kind of, when you got to get your head out of your ass, like you're losing your daughter.
Yeah.
You know, your husband wants to divorce you. He just can't get the proverbial word in edgewise yet. He's,
Yeah.
well, really, he's just unwilling to go. You have to listen.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, you're still trying to impress your father, who, again, those first 10 minutes set up all the emotional stakes.
Yeah.
But that is a great point, and again shows the talent of the filmmakers,
Hmm.
in building everything's earned.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great. But yeah, you're right, Jim. I didn't think of that. That is where it starts to, as the momentum of the plot picks up, your
Yeah.
emotional involvement is also picking up.
Well, when we're always talking about side trips and side quests and stuff like that, so
Yeah.
I thought that was just another element of it. Yeah, tell her you love her. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it once you sort of keyed into that, that's sort of like, okay, these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They've got a path. It's not just random. It
Yeah.
is an overstuffed movie, I think, in a lot of ways. Like there's a lot. It probably due with a good second viewing in a few months, but.
Uh-huh.
That's not a bad thing. I'd rather have it overstuffed than understuffed, if you know what I mean.
That's an interesting comment because I'm about to. It's in the queue, and I'm like, I gotta watch Tenet again. Um, I again, I'm not sure I'll be the only character I was ever emotionally invested in was the woman played by Elizabeth Debicki. Debicki.
Mm,
Debicki? Yeah, I believe
Debicki.
that's it.
I
You
think
know
so.
what?
Yeah.
Some of the great folks in the best chat on the internet will chime in on
You
that.
bet.
Uh, let me ask you this before we move into meaning. Was there, like, again, I this is just such a great example of execution, right? It's like,
Mm,
where do we take this quotidian premise?
mm,
and it somehow it kind of hit me. I don't know about you. I'm a man in my 50s. I have things I'm very proud of. I still have a, you know, I still have plans for the future, but at the same time, it brings up choices I've made
mm-hmm.
and how it's affected my life. And so I was feeling that. I don't know about, did you have any of those moments as you're, or not
Um,
being a woman,
yeah,
a mother of a gay daughter with the white girl?
yeah, exactly the same. My experience. No, I mean, did it make me reflect on my own life choices? I, you know, I guess it would, and we can talk about this in the message part of it. I was more looking at it in terms of it's sort of not exactly, but sort of sliding doors yeah, where any one of these decisions or any one of these missed appointments or what have you might have led
The
somewhere.
what could have been.
Yeah, yeah, a
I,
little bit. Yeah.
but I think that's and I see what you mean that I'm not actually saying it's as much a philosophical position the film took as much as
Mm.
like it was exploiting that feeling in me.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
exploiting's too strong a word, but
No, I
it's
get it.
it must like I mean the filmmakers when they were writing the story must have thought, I wonder if you're young, it's like I'm totally in charge of my life.
Yeah.
But the older the viewer gets, the more it's like,
Oh, oh,
no,
oh.
I get that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
start to empathize on a different level with Yeoh, her husband, Waymond.
Hmm.
You and well at the same time you can be joy at times. It's like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
not being listened to. you know
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, you're asking me this in July, which is basically the nicest time of year around here. If you ask me that same question in January, I might have a when I'm already, enjoying the 6 hours of sunlight a day, I might have a different answer for you. But yeah, I took the positive from it. Sort of messages about potential, et cetera, et cetera. But
Yeah,
I think you can go either way on this too.
yeah. All right, well, on that let's take a quick look at the chat before we
Yeah, you
move
bet.
forward. It's no Where are we here? Memoirs. Yeah, there's Putin's cat. Memoirs of a Geisha. Thanks, Putin's cat. I should have been paying more attention to the chat instead of what the hell, concubine. uh, and DMG. First time I saw Michelle Yeoh was in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Mm.
Super
That was
cop.
yeah.
Oh wow. Super Cop Police Story 3, shown in America, was her entry into Bond. Huh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. I got a
okay.
90s movies.
Also, DMG commenting on the CGI, the visual effects, and how good they were. And absolutely. Yeah. And, DMG. One thing he loved about this movie: the vast majority of people from North America are descended from immigrants across the globe. I'm glad this movie told their story not from an other. That's actually DMG. Elaborate on that. I think I
Mhm.
know where you're. I think I know what you're saying there, but I'd like to hear. Oh wait, he did. He did elaborate. Other perspective, i.e., this movie is about immigrants who happen to be Chinese. Not look at those Asian immigrants. Where they are from is part of it, but the film doesn't bend over backwards. You know what?
Mhm.
We're going to come back to that. Would you before we actually, maybe this is the perfect time, Jim, to move into meaning, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, um,
I have to descend into another universe for that one. I've done that
so
periodically.
I think well, again, back to being disconnected.
Hmm.
Uh, that they chose to base this in an immigrant experience.
Hmm.
I think actually really lends itself. Well, even actually, maybe I'm as much making a story comment as I'm making a meaning comment. By using an immigrant, and this is where GMG is right. Like any immigrant experience, and I do think though, whether it be Asian or let's say Mexican or Central American or South American, I think the other, not just other language, other culture, and especially or not especially, or is equally important, other complexion, let's say, other color, uh, kind of helps give you an idea without saying it,
Hmm.
the isolation Michelle Yeoh feels, and that, having to depend on her daughter as an interpreter and not wanting that to happen. And, there is a cultural conflict there. Although some of
Mhm.
it is like, yeah, I wouldn't want any of my friends to know if I was being audited, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe I would, but it would be very intimate friends. It'd be very close where I'd be like, yeah, I'm going through this shitty thing. You know what? But to have to bring your adult child into it, I think would be difficult for anyone.
Yeah.
But making them immigrants, and yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis never even asked. She doesn't have to be a racist. She just has to be.
Just equal opportunity nasty.
Well, with the
Or-
anal probes too.
Oh yes.
It's terrible. Geez,
Yeah.
what's the meaning behind those?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, that's a great point. It definitely doesn't say capital C Chinese. It's very much just a part of all the other things we're learning about the character.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah, Jim, like from your, and this couldn't change, but if you're to say their overlying message, their the biggest point they're making, the big why of this movie, what would it be for you?
Is it something as I'm just looking at the notes that I took here. That notion of what makes life important, and could it be something as simple as family, or just your relationship with others? One of the reason why I mentioned that is one of the big shots, although they don't call tons of attention to it or linger on it for too long, is at the end when they're about to be sucked into the bagel. It will make sense if you watch it, folks. The black bagel, and they're sort of going up the staircase. Is that Evelyn's trying to pull her daughter out of it, and then she gets a little help, and she looks back, and it's her father. Or no, there's a chain of about 4 people. I think it was Waymond, and then the father, or something along those lines. And all together, they're trying to prevent the daughter from being sucked in the black hole. I think that was part of one of the more important shots of the movie, as fantastical as it sounds. And just that sort of. But then again, I was wondering, is it that simple? Is it as simple as, love? Love is love kind of thing. Which seems a bit, again, simplistic to me. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think was the sort of the major?
I think you. It may seem simple, but I mean, look what Guardians of the Galaxy is able to mine out of family.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the main one, although there may be a few all equal ones.
Yeah.
I think there is something about it is maybe not a critique, but a kind of answer to the idea that we're all just individual atoms. We were born alone, we die alone. I think this film is rejecting that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's about connection and paying attention to those connections.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Michelle Yeoh at the beginning is not paying attention. Like her character's, let's say, biggest problem is she's too into her problems and not enough being connected to the people around her, people she could draw on for strength and help and support. It's like she is on her own. It doesn't help that Gong Gong at the beginning, it's like, you can go, you're not our daughter anymore.
Yeah.
I want to kind of jump back to something DMG said that, and I wanted to ask you about this.
Sure.
I will say, and we haven't come up with a metric yet, although I think we should add to our social nutrition checklist, but this is and I think what helps it is centered in an immigrant family.
Mhm.
Whoops, a little out of control here. Sorry about that. Uh, there is I think it's diverse in a great way. We're
Mhm.
seeing a messy, overstuffed house. We're meeting some of the characters that you meet in the laundromat are, and that's why I was struggling. Like I don't know if I can call it a class conscious film, but
Mhm.
it's close. It has
Yeah.
some sympathy for and yes, they're small business people, but I would call them working class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know what? They just happen to own their tools. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, that their experience as we see it feels like not your standard not your standard experience. And so I don't know if that is their purpose, if that's the
Mhm.
filmmaker's purpose. But I would say it just felt legitimate and it felt
Mhm.
real. Again, this working class boy is like, I have laundered clothes in those laundromats. I have
Mhm.
visited people in that overstuffed house,
Yeah.
you know, and I I would I struggled with it, and I think we need to add a metric, you know, to have, yeah, the gay daughter, you know,
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, that is part of our reality, you know,
Mhm.
1 out of 10, 1 out of 5 to, or 1 out of 20 to 1 out of 10 is, you know, going to be on a sexuality spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Not average, not in
And
the
there's a
middle.
couple. I had to remind myself of this again. There's a couple of gay relationships
Yeah.
in this movie too, so they're open to that. When you think about it, the one
Again, I
white
don't think
male,
it's one of their purposeful, like, or
no,
conscious,
and you
this is
don't
part of
even,
the philosophy of the film.
yeah, and that's one of the beautiful things is that you don't even realize until you sit back and think that the only real white dude with any dialogue was the old guy with the beard in the laundromat. I
Yeah,
think there might have been a few that had a few lines here and there, but
yeah,
yeah, it was a diverse cast without sort of hitting you over the
yeah.
head with it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
without
I think
feeling like capital D diverse, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and I think that Michelle, you're talking about the Evelyn character cutting herself off. She literally, when the other universe's Wayman is trying to talk to her, she literally says, in a comedic way, it's a great line, and I'm not going to do an impression, but she's almost, it's playing that busy Chinese business lady. She says, "I have no time for this.
yeah, yeah,
Talk to me another day." And it was a beautifully delivered line in the closet there.
yeah.
She's trying to get out of it, but yeah, yeah. I mean,
Which is,
and
you feel, she has used that for
yeah,
every family member, every customer who just wanted to engage with her on a human level,
hmm
you know?
hmm yeah. And in terms of class consciousness, I sort of wonder if the only reason that they made it a dry cleaner was to bring the Jenny Slate's character into it, who is because she's only there for the dry cleaning, and
Yeah,
she's a little more well off. We're led to believe
yeah,
than the others.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, at the
but
same time, not being a caricature
yeah,
racist or like just a, you wouldn't
bit of a
agree?
snot.
I,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
just
I'm more like
yeah,
just, yeah, just some random. I want my stuff. She's
yeah,
like, even when she's talking to, because a lot of times we'd see that and you're like, okay, here comes when the jerk
yeah.
says something unpleasant to her friend on the phone. And she's like, no, ask him for the ticket. That's how it works. And
hmm
I loved that line. I loved that moment because it does play with an expectation because you're kind of going, you
yeah.
sort of, the initial look is like, oh, this will be the asshole customer. When it's really,
Eh,
you know,
And it's funny. A couple scenes later, Carla says, "Oh, she made it to the party," because they're having this party where
yeah,
they're
yeah,
sort of all decked out in red and stuff. And yeah, it was yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Uh, what about, yeah, for myself, going back to the original question of what the big
Mm.
meaning, I think it's as much about connection as it is about anything else. And of
Yeah,
course, when you talk about connection, family and love is going to come up. Although
mhm,
we should jump into the chat and see where everyone else is on that.
sure.
Uh, One of the things that I saw just in passing as I was searching for something else was the how life is meaningless, a nihilism, and I'm like, I don't, I I don't think this is. I think that's too superficial a reading.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, maybe a little bit of that, but almost like it,
I think it's put up as a struggle, as as something people try to address.
yeah.
Specifically the daughter in this case.
Hmm.
That's really struggling with who she is or where she
Yeah.
is in life. Even though she seems to have a good relationship with her girlfriend,
Yeah.
but still there's
Yeah.
she's got existential issues there that are seem to be driving her a little bit mad. So. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is, the role of potential as well. There's a great line in
Oh.
Superstore that Bo, the white rapper, delivers, and so he does something. Somebody's surprised, and he says, "I contain multitudes, yo," and it's one of my favorite lines from the whole. I think it's a Maya Angelou quote or something, but it's one of those great lines that stuck with me, and part of what makes Superstore such a great show, underrated show in my opinion. But that I contain multitudes, and this is that
Yo.
whether you want to compare it to sliding doors or whatever,
Yeah.
it's it's got a bit of sliding doors, a little bit of Matrix, a little
Yeah.
little bit, not
Little
tons, but
bit. Yeah. Where
it's
you could
that sort
see
of
in a Venn diagram, there's some overlap.
there's some
Yeah.
overlap,
Yeah.
but I think there's a little bit of that, the human potential. Uh, you could you could go as far as your imagination takes you, but things get in the way.
Yeah.
That kind of thing,
The
and other things.
vicissitudes of life. Uh,
Yeah,
draw some
yeah,
comfort that in the multiverse, there's somebody who made better choices than you did. At least
well,
one of you will be successful.
and that's another great quote. Is like, we found the worst version of you. You're perfect.
Yeah.
And they say shocking things to each other in this. Is that I just experienced my life without you, and it was wonderful. There's those are some kind of shocking lines that I props to that the script for that. But I think that there's a lot of not potential in the business sense, in the you're going to be a success,
Yeah.
but just where you can go in this life. I
Yeah.
think.
Well, what can happen in life? Maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's jump into the chat for a sec.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. DMG notes that the Daniels directed Swiss Army Man, a film I
did
have
know
not
that.
seen.
Yeah. We should throw that on the list, maybe.
Okay. He also asks us if we've seen how often Dan Murrell talks about, and I finally pronounced that correctly right off the bat. Dan Murrell talks about everything being A24's all-time most successful box office. Yes, I have. Dan Murrell, his channel, he does a great weekly box office rundown. He also reviews films, but he does a great numbers analysis, streaming, everything. I recommend it. Okay. I love how many different metrics he uses to show how successful this film is. Yeah, it is. It is A24's biggest hit by far. What was its most successful up to this point? I think it was last year, even. Maybe not last year, too. Like within the last couple of years. Yeah, it's on the upswing. Of course, that never lasts forever. It will. Yeah. A24 is going to go the way of so many others. Either disappear or get bought and become
Enjoy
consumed.
while it lasts.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, they have their team knows how to pick a great film.
Yeah.
and market it. Okay, Jelly Ahmed is talking about Ahmed and DMG talking about Jelly Duck 100 and oh, DMG asks Putin's cat, haven't seen Memories of a Geisha, worth watching. I think it is. It's a melodrama. There is a reason nobody talks about it anymore. Um, but I think it's the first time we see Li Gong in a film. Same, maybe Zhang Ziyi.
Mhm.
Uh, it, Li Gong actually learned. Here's a note. Here's a note for you, Jim.
Sure.
Her dialogue, all her English dialogue, she learned phonetically.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking
Oh,
of
yeah.
craft,
From the
and she
school of
delivers
Pete
as
Takeshi.
the bad, the
Yeah.
the bad geisha in the power struggle within the, you know.
Yeah.
Ken Watanabe was fantastic. Yeah, I think it's worth. I want to say that is just a sec here. Steven Spielberg. It was Rob Marshall directed it, but Steven Spielberg was one of the producers, and I think he wanted to direct it, and he could have even been one of those. Yeah, he couldn't put the
Ran out of
time
time.
together. You know,
Yeah.
he was too busy
Yeah.
making other blockbuster hits. DMG
Maybe he
also
did in
says,
another universe.
oh, and then, oh, DMG, another chance to take a shot at Thor and Love and Thunder.
Holy crackers.
But, yeah, a few people had a mean on for that. Again, I will, or I'll put a link somewhere, probably earlier in the show, and I'll pin a comment to our Thor, Love and Thunder, blah, blah,
That
blah.
makes me like it more. No, I'm just kidding. Apparently it's a huge hit though. Like apparently it's blown a lot of the, money wise. Done quite well for them.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to this film.
Sure.
Actually, let's not get back to this film. I think it
Uh-oh.
is that time, Jim, to talk about what we're going to watch. Although we've got an option of two films.
Sure.
So usually we would watch, or we would be overanalyzing this.
Mm-hmm.
But we are thinking we might end up next week analyzing The Northman. Folks, we will make up our mind. I got to admit, unlike DMG and a few others, I enjoyed. I did. I had a good time at Thor and Love and Thunder.
Oh, you were laughing up a storm. I was laughing too, but it's fun watching a movie with somebody who's enjoying it as well, or just even a theater full of people, which is as we saw with COVID, not always available. But it was fun watching it.
That said, folks, this is kind of you're here at a change in the show. Or what may be a change in the show. We are thinking that, or this is what I'm wondering. We go watch a movie, we do our parking lot reaction, but then the question is it worthy of an hour of chat with you all? Or should we watch something that pushes the envelope? Or should we watch something where we're taking a bit of a risk for ourselves? Or just something we're just more interested in? Thor Love and Thunder is a fine film. We did enjoy ourselves, but is it as good as Thor Ragnarok? Notwithstanding Zach Galler's, I liked it better than Thor Ragnarok. What are you talking about, buddy? It is not as good a film. And so I'm not sure I want to spend a whole hour talking about Thor.
Well,
Love and
and the other thing is like how much as fun as the Marvel ride has been, we've spent burnt a few of those
hours.
Cooling, the Google storage or what are YouTube storage facilities. Spent some energon cubes on how much we've spoken about Marvel, and
That's a
it could be a
great
chance
point, Jim.
for us to look at something else, So
Yeah.
that's in favor of the Northman,
Yeah.
and it
So
makes it sound like I'm lisping.
yeah,
Northman.
Northman. Uh, so I think this then once again sort of says why you should you know what like, subscribe, ringy ding that bell.
Oh, yeah. Oh wait, the ruler. I'm just kidding. I'm trying to be all
good
absurdist.
one.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So, folks, we will. It'll be one or the other, but yeah, it's looking more like the Northman every minute. Jim and I will catch up on all these other great movies that we didn't watch in the spring. But let's get back to this one before we move forward. Or as we move forward, as we get into the director. We're giving the director a pass or a fail. The Daniels.
The directors.
Oh, I need one more eye roll. There we go.
Daniels is. Yeah, no, absolutely a pass.
Yeah.
Give him a flying pass. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah. Great. Great ride. Jim.
And they took some chances too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's reminiscent of bigger, better funded films, nicer cars, let's say. And again, execution. Just, you know what a great way to take off from what is really someone later in their life going, in some ways, it's the aesthetics, the tone is the only difference here. What was Tom Cruise? What was Mitchell going through? It's like later in life, things taken away from him. Where is his life going? What did it all mean?
Yeah.
Another chance to do something great. They're basically the same movie. Okay, that's a little much. I agree with you, Jim, though. Yeah, 100% pass. And with that done, do you got any final thoughts regarding the film? Anything we might have missed that you wanted to say?
I wanted to put in my my wife's 2 cents, and she looked at it from her perspective. Was that it was a lot about mothers and daughters, specific. She's a mother and has a daughter. Very heavily in the Chinese sense of things, how their family chemistry seems to work out, or how we are led to believe how it works out. But
especially
also
even some of the one child policy ramifications
with the expectation and all that sort of thing. And the other thing too that she mentioned was that the sort of that gulf between kids and parents, where it's that, oh, you think you have it hard, you should walk a mile in my shoes, and vice versa. Is that there's two forces at work there, and they might not always sort of appreciate each other. I think that's sort of not a comment on our own children.
No, not at all.
If they happen to be watching this, but that's just, I wanted to put in her 2 cents. I should mention I tend to overlook these things or not mention them. The fight choreography, props to those guys too. I should have mentioned it in the first segment there, but some of the cuts with the pizza sign thing and those are pretty fun, pretty interesting. So
yeah,
those are my final thoughts. How about you?
You know what? I am going to have to revisit this film. I did find it very... Yeah, it was fun. It engages the intellect and later on, like you say, the heart, which is always nice. Oh, excuse me. Pardon me. It may be too much of a... and I'm not talking Christopher Nolan puzzle, but still maybe a bit too much of a puzzle movie to be anything more than, oh, that was a great thinker, or do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. It's
and
funny, yeah. Maybe we should have brought that term up earlier, but yeah, no, yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense.
but still, not a film I'll forget.
Yeah, no,
You know, won't forget this. And I also, you know, to go back to the Daniels, sigh, ambition, you know, and maybe that's one thing we, yeah, I'd like to leave on that note. Fucking BALLS on these guys. You know what? The ambition of this film and the modernity of using an old, you know, a woman, later in life, not, you know, oh, who's the hottie of the day? You know, to center it the way they did, to have the characters they did, you know, was just was awesome. Yeah, and just what an ambitious film. I hope that they, again, it's always tough, right? You know, the more pull you get, the more options you have, but also the less you have to listen to others, right? So all of a sudden, you know, it'll be interesting. It'd be interesting to follow their career, though.
Yeah,
that's my thought. Let's see what we got going on in the chat before we. DMG says. Oh,
go ahead.
DMG,
I was just going to say, I don't think anybody on this set ever said, "Can we get away with a 2-shot?" You know, like.
You know, we all have lives. I want to go home tonight. Okay, DMG says, there's also the schisms inside of immigrant families where the first generation born in the new land has a much different perspective from their parents who immigrated, i.e. the dreams. For your possible children versus what your actual children want once they're actually born and grown up. Yeah, that's true. That but also so did Gong Gong obviously have great expectations on Evelyn. And what does she do? She goes to a whole, apparently just so much, goodbye, Dad. It's really anything to get away from you. Who knows, right? But yeah, that can be kind of folded in here. That's a great point, DMG. Thanks for that. So okay, on that note, I think it's about time to cash in our chips. But let's say goodbye to the folks in the chat first. First of all, DMG, great seeing you here, man. Got to have you back on the show. Maybe we'll do a 4 thing on. We gotta get you back on the show. Great to see you here, DMG. Ahmed, Jelly Duck 100, who is so close. Ahmed, if you're still here, tell us what you need to put you out to make you an affiliate on Twitch, because he's like stupid close. Let's give some love to Ahmed and how close he's coming. Putin's cat, whoever Putin's cat is, only Jim knows. Probably one of his kids. But Putin's cat is here, and thanks so much for coming. Thanks for chiming in, especially on Memoirs of a Geisha. Really appreciated. Oh, also said felt that Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon should have won Best Picture over Gladiator.
Yeah,
not exactly not a hot take, a solid take. You know,
he's not wrong.
Yeah, may not be right, but not wrong. Who else? Who am I missing here? Got Jelly Duck 100. Yes, Curtis Judd. Great to see you here, Curtis. Thanks for popping in. And if you're lurking in the background, appreciate it. Heck, he's a fellow YouTuber. He knows any watch time is good watch time. All right. Well, on that note, again, everybody, thank you all very much for coming in.
Yes.
Thanks for hanging with us as we got into the weeds on everything, everywhere, all at once. Of course, it does sound like You know what, Jim? Can we make a call right now, and we're going to do Northman next week?
Let's do Northman.
All right. So yes, next week, Sunday, 9:45 p.m. Central Daylight Time, notwithstanding the tardiness tonight, we are going to be digging in deep into The Northman, which is on streaming. So you can find that anywhere. And yeah, check it out and join us as we try and dig into this film, see what worked and what didn't work, and what moved us here in our hearts, and triggered us up here in our melons. And yeah, thank you all very much. Oh wait, what do we got? Somebody DMG. Late? Ooh, Vegas reference for my benefit. All right, everybody, thanks very much. Really appreciate you popping in. And yeah, I'm going to